Hey, welcome back to Time with Steel Garage. We're gonna get right back into this Sikky Winters diff, part 3 of the Sickweek prep, part 2 of this diff install. Let me get you caught up on what we've been up to since you've been gone. All right, so I went ahead and tied in the back of the diff here with a 1/4-inch steel plate, and you might recognize it. Those guys that have paid attention since the beginning of this build. This is that crappy eBay transmission mount that I got for a 2JZ conversion in a Mercedes that was garbage. So we cut it up and used the steel and repurposed it. So now we have the rear is tied in super strong and it's not going anywhere. Now on the front, I went round and round about the best way to tie this in. I had to cut a significant portion of the frame out. This is all 1/4 inch. So I thought, you know, the strongest way to do this is to just box it in. So I went ahead and ordered these 1/4 inch steel laser cut pieces from Send Cut Send. You guys know I love that place. And what I'm gonna do is just box this whole structure in, put holes in it just to save a little bit of weight, and then that's gonna tie into the top of the diff cage. And instead of sitting here talking to you about it for 15 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and I'll bring you back. I'm Jimmy, and this is Time with Steel Garage. It's a little smoky in here.
Beyond the sands of time, within the realm of the mind, there is a land where life and death are ruled by steel.
She ain't going nowhere now. Tied into the diff, tied into the frame, tied into the front cover support. So all we gotta do is box in the sides here, which will give us some more strength on the frame, and the diff is installed. I even got myself some Time with Steel Garage letters, laser cut here by Send Cut Send, so I can sign my work. So I'll put those on there, and then somebody in the future can make fun of my work or whatever. I'm stoked because this is now no longer just a frame that was cut in half. She is completely boxed in now. I went ahead and autographed my work, and I got 1/4 inch plate boxed in on the frame and to this. So now this frame is really well tied into this box structure, which is really well tied into the diff cage. So for better or for worse, she ain't going nowhere. Pretty stoked. I think that turned out pretty good. You know, look at that thing from the side. Like, that is a monster. But it is fully installed into this frame. Come over here to the car. I got the fuel cell in from Summit. This is an RCI fuel cell. I elected to go with one that doesn't have a sump back here. It's a 15-gallon. Car's already got a natural firewall behind the tank, so this will be legal and it won't be hanging out below the car, so I should be able to get away with just mount strap. We'll see how much I have to cut out of the floor, if I have to make like 1 1/4 square floor for it, but I'd like to be able to keep it in the wheel well because I think that's pretty cool, and I still has a lot of trunk space for parts and fluids and storage and stuff for drag and drive. So cool thing about this Merc is it's got these little cubbies on the side of the frame rails, so a great place for fluids and stuff. And I can put like a Tupperware container right here that's not going to hurt the fuel cell. So there's a lot of storage in here still, which is cool. But the stock fuel tank is back there. I got to get that out. I got to get all this plastic out of here and get the fuel tank out before I can start cutting. All right, so we got the trunk floor out. We got the plastic spare tire holder and nut out. We got the side molding out, and we got the piece of carpet that covers the gas tank. This gas tank's in phenomenal shape. I got a buddy that has a Merc that needs a gas tank, so I'm gonna try to get this out of here without dinging it up so it can go to his car. But you can see the fuel sender plugs in there. There's a bolt there and there. I don't think there's any on the bottom or top. There's a couple of bolts on the side. You got the vent line to the tank. We got the filler, got the cap and the rubber grommet. The easiest way I see to get this out is to get those bolts out, pull that side of the tank out, which will let me get the filler neck out without bending it. Like I said, I'm trying to get this tank out without damaging it so it can go into another Mercedes. And then if we look underneath the car, we've got the return line and overflow vent here. Let's see here. And we got the filler, the feed line to the fuel system. All this has to go. Sway bar's got to come off. I don't know about the sway bar. I have a feeling it's gonna have to go. But this sway bar is such a dinky design, like plastic links that I bumped into and broke off. So if the sway bar has to go, whatever, we'll figure out a new sway bar solution later that I'll weld in. But for now, I'm gonna take the sway bar off, get rid of all these fuel lines, get that tank out, and then we'll make a cardboard cutout of the diff over there on the table that we can kind of hold here. Take some measurements, I don't know, we'll figure it out. But I'd like to be able to hang this frame back in the car to, one, make sure it still fits the car and I didn't screw it up, and 2, we can't get our measurements until the frame's in the car, so that's the most important priority right now. All right, that was pretty easy actually. We got a factory firewall, so that's good. But I think we're gonna have plenty of room to cut here to put that diff in. And I did have to remove the sway bar. It's in the way. I'm gonna figure out a solution to that later. That's not a priority, especially for drag racing. I don't really need that rear sway bar right now. The tank's in great shape, didn't damage it on the way out, so that's gonna live a future life in another Mercedes that's all original. And I went ahead and saved my buddy all the hardware and gaskets and stuff that is expensive when it comes to Mercedes. So he should be able to put that right in his car, and parts will live on. So lunchtime. Okay, I'm gonna get over here. Okay. Woo. All right, so I've already drilled some pilot holes. I did a whole bunch of measurements. The spray paint was just a rough wag, but gonna have to cut a lot more out than we originally thought. So the brake line's gone. The diff is basically the diff cage goes from that hole to that hole, straight back, and then expands out to these holes, and then it comes straight back, and then we're gonna have the front of the quick change right here. So the bummer is we're gonna have to cut all this gray out, and we're gonna have to cut this cross member here on the back, which is going to take a lot of strength out of the back of this car. So the good news is once we get this frame back in here with all the 1/4-inch steel and everything on that rear subframe, it'll tie the car back together, and then I'm going to end up having to get some box tubing, and I'm going to have to weld a piece of box tube up top to re-brace the back of the car back here. Because I mean, the reality is this diff cage is all 1/4-inch steel. It's way stronger than this factory sheet metal, and even this frame, this box frame, is really thin. So by tying that all together, the car is going to be strong again, but I'm still going to want to reinforce after I get rid of this box tube. And I'll show you what I mean. Once I get up in the back here, you can see better. This is that box frame, and you can see the rails on the back of the car, and this is just sheet metal. It's really thin. In fact, it's hollow. This is just an L shape, a U shape, really. I can put my hand inside the frame here. So what my plan is since I'm going to cut this out, the reality is, again, I think that diff cage is, I mean, it's 1/4-inch steel. It's way stronger than this. So the car is going to be tied together, but what I think I'm going to do is, you see the box beam, is I'm going to get a piece of square tubing like I made like you would traditionally make like subframe connectors out of, and I'll just measure that, have it cut by the local metal shop, and I'll just weld a brace in between the 2 frame rails back there, and that'll give us, you know, I might even go from the top to the top, because that'll give us clearance for the diff, and that'll just make me feel better about the fact that I cut a big chunk out of this, and it'll tie it back together. But yeah, the next part is ruining a perfectly good Mercedes floor, cutting it out. Well, there she be, whole. You can see the box frame there, right there. You see how thin that box tubing is. I mean, that's sheet metal basically, just formed in a box. So honestly, that rear subframe with that 1/4-inch diff support is gonna tie the back of this car back together way stronger than this was anyway. But I'll end up taking a piece of square tube, or like basically the same stuff that you do subframe connectors with. That stuff right there. And run it across the back. I'll run it across the back just to kind of restore that integrity and weld up these holes that are in the floor once we get everything installed. But right now we just need to get everything fitting back in the car again, then we can cover this up. I also have that transmission tunnel sheet metal left over, a whole bunch of it, that's going to end up covering this hole pretty nicely. So not at all worried about this. We need to get the rear subframe to bolt back to the car, and then we can worry about cleaning all this up. If it fits, it ships, and then we'll start going from there. Another day, another day. So apparently it's National Pumpkin Spice Latte Day, so I'm gonna go ahead and just stay in the shop. Probably one of the most dangerous days to be on the road. You got soccer moms everywhere just going crazy to get them PSL lips. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, exciting day here. So today's objective, get this frame off the jig, diff's already unbolted, and see if it even bolts back in the car and make it fit. Once I get the frame bolted in, we're gonna loosely hang the suspension, loosely hang the diff, get the wheels about ride height so I can get axle measurements taken, and then I'm gonna go straight to the computer and order axles because every day matters right now. Then it's gotta all come back out of the car again. We're gonna put the frame back on the jig, and then I'll start working on flipping this thing over, welding all the joints that I already did on the inside, and then also we're gonna start reinforcing control arm pockets, stuff like that. So yeah, then once we get the frame all reinforced and it's ready to go, bulletproof, then we can actually grind you know, wire wheel everything and paint it. I'm not powder coating this frame. Like, I don't have time for it to be stuck in a powder coaters for a month. If you guys know how I feel about painters, platers, chromers, they're all the same. They tell you 2 weeks, double that time at least. So anyhow, I'm just gonna go with this stuff. I love rust encapsulator. I use platinum on the DeLorean. I want this to be black, so I went with the rust encapsulator plus from Eastwood. It's my go-to. On the DeLorean, I use platinum, and this stuff is like hard. It's like nail polish hard almost. And then I top coated it in Rust-Oleum gray to match the factory DeLorean frame color. But in this situation, I'm just gonna do a couple of coats of rust encapsulator plus. I'll make it a date night with the wife. She can help me, you know what I mean? And anyways, time to get back to work.
Medieval steel cuts you like a knife. Warriors on the battlefield, laying down their lives.
I am so stoked right now. So not only did this frame literally bolt in place, it bolted in place with zero fitment issues on these mounts. Like, I was so worried that these corner mounts were not going to line up, and it right like a glove, man. I did have to trim a little bit more for this plate, and it is a big hole, but remember, I'm going to have to work on this car from underneath. I'm going to need to be able to change the diff fluid and stuff, so I'm going to have to cut a little bit more out even on this side, and then I'll end up making a cover for it. And I think I might just make a cover that is removable instead of welding it completely. We'll see. But it fits awesome. And I can't believe I thought I was only going to have to trim a little bit in the beginning, because it's basically in the trunk. I mean, I'll show you here in a minute. But the drive shaft fitment is going to be perfect. There we go. Okay. So we'll switch that out to a 1350, 1310 conversion joint and line that baby right up to the center, and the drive shaft is centered in the tunnel. I'm super stoked on that. And you can see we got plenty of room, slip joint, but that is huge. I mean, drive shaft fitment is the biggest concern here. CV axles, it's gonna be close. I'm gonna have to hang the suspension here to really be able to tell. That's the next step. But first I wanna show you guys how much of this is really in the trunk. Look at that. It's hilarious. I mean, the diff is basically in the trunk. I think I got enough room there now, but I'm probably gonna even notch this out a little bit more because I'm gonna wanna be able to change this diff fluid easily in the pit. Man, it might be easier just to change it from the trunk. But I still got to mount the fuel cell in here, remember that. So ultimately you want to be able to do everything from underneath the car. I think I'm going to change my fuel cell idea. Instead of putting it down in the pan, I think I'm going to build an 1.25 inch square tubing floor base for it that ties each frame rail together. Put a little strength back here, and I'm going to mount the cell in the center of the trunk behind the crash bar, so there's protection. But that'll give me room to work on the diff, and I just don't like the idea of having it on the floor of the car right there. So we'll see. But man, this is huge, guys. Huge progress. This went from dream to super scared to I think I might have ruined my car to reality. I'm super stoked. So obviously we're gonna have to clean these cuts up. That was just a rough cut to get the thing fit in here. We got to take another couple inches out of this side. Remember, we got to be able to work on this thing, get bolts in and out, so you can't really have the cuts right up on that diff frame. And this car just went to another level. So now let's hang the suspension and start measuring axles. That is the priority. Get those axles ordered today. All right, major progress has been made. I threw the whole suspension on minus rear springs, just mocked everything up loosely so that I could get the car on blocks. I know it's ride height, so I don't need the springs in there. And I measured for axle, driver's side 23.5, passenger side 21 5/8. All this work has been to get to this point. So I'm about to take lunch, go inside and order some axles, because every day that I give those guys to make them, the better off our chances of success will be. Now, if you figure that the knuckle of the axle is gonna come out about that far, and the other one's gonna be about the same distance. It is gonna be real close on the axles touching the frame. It will probably work, but if I bottom out real heavy or load the back of this thing too heavy and we hit a bump, it's gonna hit. So bad news is I gotta notch the frame for axles, which is pretty easy on this thing because it's already got an arch for the axle, and it's not really close right here. It's going to be close on this side, so I'll end up just taking this and notching it with some tube up to that pinch weld, and that should give us the clearance. It's pretty much the same thing on this side. It's real close, too close for comfort really. So we're gonna notch both sides. It's not really a big deal. I kind of expected it. This whole thing's got to come back out anyway. Obviously I still got to reinforce all the control arm pockets, and the frame needs a lot more work. So believe it or not, the hard part is done. It's all been to get to this point to measure for axles. So lunch break for me, and then I'm going to order the axles and get those things on their way, and then try to get motivated to come out here and take this all back apart again. All right, axles are ordered. They said they could get them to me pretty quickly. They should have them shipped out in a few days. They're coming from across the pond in Europe though, so it's gonna be a bit. Now I gotta take this all back out. I'm gonna start by getting the transmission jack under here and getting this rear diff on the transmission jack and lowering it out that way, and then I'll pull the suspension back off, drop the frame, and then put it back on the frame jig upside down so I can start working on notching for axles and reinforcing the pocket. Getting pretty good at this. I dropped that whole setup in an hour, so if there's a major catastrophe with something back here and we have to get it out, we can. But now I'm going to pull that thing out and essentially flip it upside down on the jig, because now we got a notch for axles and start reinforcing things, and we got to pull these stock subframe bushings out because I'm going to replace them with hard material with no flex in it, and we're also ditching all the stock control arms for some aluminum stuff with trunnions on the end, race stuff. So there's going to be zero flex back here. We also got bushings for the lower control arm, and we got new pivot joints. You can see this, that ain't okay. That pivot joint is probably original, and this car in stock form had over 250,000 miles on it. This other side's the same way. And this is what holds your spring and takes all that torque. So we're gonna replace these bushings right here. We got brand new Mercedes joints for right here. The axles I got are using a stock bearing, but they come with new hubs that are machined to fit the stock bearing. So we're gonna replace the bearing, press these hubs out. We're gonna keep all the hardware, but ditch the control arms. So really the only thing we're gonna keep is spindle out and lower control arm, plus my lowering springs. Oh, another day, another dollar. So I went to the local metal store. I picked up some 11 gauge 1.25 inch mild steel square tubing. I didn't want to have to do this, but I think it's the right thing to do. I'm going to end up building a floor for that fuel cell. I'm going to tie both sides of the frame together in the back of the car to mount the fuel cell to, and that's going to do two things. It'll be a safer structure for the fuel cell, and it's going to give strength back to the back of the car. And I also went up and picked up some 4-inch OD 1/8 inch thick pipe that I'm going to use to make C-notches with. So without further ado, let's get back to work. Hello ladies, good morning. Oh, all right. So you can see the frame structure starts on each side of the car, goes to the back, and the factory cars actually could install hitches. They use these holes here and a piece of metal plate that went back here for the hitch to bolt to, and the hitch was behind the bumper on both sides. And what I'm going to do is just do 43-inch sticks across to each side of the frame, and then we'll set the fuel cell in the middle of the car. That'll help for weight and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to build like 3 18-inch crossbars to hold the weight of the cell, and then we'll use a strap to hold the cell to the base of the floor. And that's going to put structure back between the frame for that I cut out, and hold the fuel cell. So work out pretty good. Let's go back here, see what's cooking. Now on the frame, I got a whole bunch of stuff here from Gearheads that was not meant for a W124 frame, but these pieces are close enough that I can modify them. So what we're gonna end up doing here, reinforcing this inside corner here, this corner here, and then we're gonna flip the frame over and we're gonna reinforce this pocket here, and that's going to give us a lot of strength in the frame. And then right here, about that line on both sides, needs to be C-notched, and I can't really help where the control arm mounts, but that's not the angle that's the problem. The issue is this angle right here. I need to take about 1 inch of metal out of this down to where that pinch weld is to give us adequate axle clearance when the car squats. It clears right now, but if I load the back of that thing down and hit a bump, it's not going to clear.
And came the day he was set free, free to roam this land.
Oh yeah, there it is. 1/8 inch reinforcement gussets on the front corners of the frame. It's way stronger. Got them on both sides. These were meant for a 190E, but they were still super awesome and time saver because I didn't have to modify them much to make them fit. Again, the 124 is just a bigger frame, bigger chassis. It's basically a 190E with a bigger rear door, but a lot of little stuff is different. So I did take the time to put some more welds on the side, you know, just a couple of key spots on this cage. So I was gonna start doing the rear corner reinforcements, but that's gonna end up cutting into or getting in the way of C-notching. So before I do that, I'm gonna have to jump into the C-notch project. You can see these little lines I made, generally where the axle is gonna go. And I got this 4-inch OD pipe with about 1/8 inch thick. I'm gonna cut it in half, and I'm gonna have to get creative over here. I'm kind of freestyling this, but you can see the radius there. I think it's gonna work pretty good. I'm gonna have to cut it up 1,000,000 times to get it to fit exactly how I want it. I think what I'm gonna start by doing is making a piece of cardboard to get the shape here and start cutting that, and then make some flat cut lines. I don't want to get into this control arm pocket, so I'm going to basically have to cut out at like a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to have to keep trimming this pipe down until it's the exact shape that I need. It's going to end up being kind of a pipe out here and little corner piece here.
Iron will in his heart and his sword in his hand. He began to take command over the mountain.
Well, I'm not gonna lie guys, that was a pain in the butt. That took me a whole bunch of tries. It is not as easy as you think. And thank God I started out with some pipe, because without that curve it would have been a nightmare. But what I ended up having to do is my second piece, the first piece I had to ditch, but the second piece is I cut a groove down the middle of it, and then I spot welded it in place, and that I had basically cut that groove almost all the way through. Trick my dad taught me when I was younger, and I hammered the radius to where I wanted it. That let the metal flex a little bit because I cut the groove, and then I got solid welds all the way around the frame side, solid welds on the back side of the frame. These side welds were boogers here, and then I welded down the middle. It's not the prettiest thing, but it's strong. It's 1/8 inch steel compared to the frame. It's not going anywhere. But you can see if you look at this side, what this almost, you know, the Sharpie almost points up here, and if you come over here, Sharpie points way down. So you imagine that the axle before would have hit like that, or it would have sat, it would have just hit the frame here. Now it's gonna tilt down like that. So I think we got enough clearance, fingers crossed. And now I got to do the other side, which I learned a bunch of lessons from this side, so this side should go smoother. It's hard, you know, obviously first time I've ever C-notched a frame, and this is a really complicated frame. I mean, it comes this way, goes that way, it bends down. Like, this isn't like notching. If we were notching like a square tube truck frame, would have been not so bad, but this is a compound radius situation. I ended up using half of a 4-inch piece of pipe by the time I did the scrap, but that's why you buy extra, you know. In fact, I got enough left on this piece to finish the other side, hopefully. I also cut off the e-brake cables. We ain't gonna be using those anymore. They won't fit with the new axles. And we got the front plates welded. Once I get this other C-notch done over here, then we'll come back in. I'll cut this piece of triangle up to fit that corner right there.
Came the king and his marching men, to fight and to kill the slave. When the fight was over, he was dead. Medieval steel cuts you like a knife. Warriors on the battlefield, laying down their lives.
Well, here we are again. I gotta be honest with you, I did not expect the C-notches to be such a pain and to take so long yesterday, but I left the shop just trashed. But today is Friday, and I believe I'm gonna get the frame done today. All I got left, I gotta clean this C-notch up over here. I'm gonna cut these gussets up, make them fit this frame. I'm gonna put a gusset in the back corner on each side. Then we're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna reinforce these lower control arm pockets, which is also the control arm that holds the spring perch and takes all the force of this rear forelink, basically a factory forelink. So they need to be beefed up because the car's making a lot more power, the frame's a lot heavier, everything's got to get beefed up. So anyways, time to get to work. The bottom of the frame is done. We got some gussets on the back, gussets on the front, so all inside corners are reinforced, and that really helped on the back. You can see tied this in a lot nicer. So, and then what we're gonna end up doing now is we're gonna flip the frame upside down and reinforce the back side of this lower control arm brace, because believe it or not, it's pretty flexible. When you see how flexible these unibody car frames are, it's pretty funny actually. They definitely need to be reinforced if you're gonna put any kind of power through them. So now unbolt this thing from the jig, flip it over, weld those two things on, and we're done with fab on the frame. All we gotta do after that is get the subframe bushings out that are obviously original from 1988, because we're going to replace those with hard. So there's going to be no rubber in this frame whatsoever. It's going to be all solid mounts. And once we get those bushings out, it's time to paint this frame. I'll have to clean it up, pressure wash it, get some of the dirt off of it. You know, date night with the wife, I'll get her to help me paint the frame. Okay, driver's side, lower spring perch, lower control arm is reinforced. I had to modify it significantly to make it work with this frame. And then I put a cut in the middle of it to kind of match the arch, hammered it to where it needed to be, and then filled it. But what it looked like before. But it serves as a corner support for the frame itself. And then this is way stronger now, it doesn't flex. This one over here, you can make it flex by hand pretty easily. So I'm gonna do the same thing on this side, and then our frame mods are complete. Oh, 7 days ago I started this project. 7 Labor Days, that is. Not the holiday, but actual work time. And the frame is done. Only thing left to do is get these rear bushings out. I already got the fronts out, and paint it. But just to summarize all the stuff we've done to this frame: cut about 12 inches out of the back, 6 inches out of the front, basically cut the frame in half. Blood Motorsports USA diff cage for the Sikky Pro 1000 Winters diff. I designed the front here, bunch of laser cut plates from Cut Sen that I boxed in, welded together, and put my John Hancock on there. And then I got a bunch of 190E reinforcement plates from Gearheads. We reinforced all the corner pockets, so the inside, back, inside, and back. And then we also reinforced the most important thing really is this lower control arm brace on both sides. So a significant amount of steel added. All the reinforcement plates on the corner gussets are 1/8 inch steel. Everything for the diff is 1/4 inch steel. All the tie-ins on the frame are 1/4 inch. So the frame is significantly heavier, probably doubled its weight, but it can also handle quite a bit more, the amount of stuff we're going to be doing to it. So it was a necessary evil, but that was the hard part of this whole project. So now we can finally start full speed ahead and get that thing painted. Next thing we're going to do after that, we're going to hang it in the car so it's not a problem anymore. Then we got to come back here, clean up these cuts. Now, I'm going to make a fuel cell floor. I'll probably tuck it back, but I want to be able to put gas in it easily. And then it'll have crash protection from the back of the car. It'll be inside the frame rails of the car. It won't be exposed underneath the car. It'll have distance between the roof of the trunk and the floor of the trunk. So if the car crashes, the fuel cell is not going to go anywhere. We're going to use these typical, 1/8 inch by 1 inch straps to hold the fuel cell to the floor. I don't know, I've never been able to order a set of these that actually fit worth the darn, but that's nothing a welder can't fit. And we got some rubber to protect the fuel cell. If you force those straps to fit on these aluminum fuel cells, they will crack. I mean, they will crack. This one says pressure tested for leaks. I won't even believe it until it holds gas and doesn't leak. It's just fuel cells, but whew, a lot of work to get to this point, but we're coming around the bend. By the way, we got t-shirts now. If you click in the bio of my YouTube, you'll see a Printify link. That's my store. I love it if you guys support the channel. Anything made from that goes back into cars or into this channel. But really, I just would love for you guys to represent the brand. So I appreciate you. I'm like Bob Ross up in here painting some happy little trees. We got a coat of Eastwood Rust Encapsulator Plus on the floor here. That was a super heavy coat. I'm not putting anything else on there. Next will be body sealer kill mat, then the interior can go back there. Okay, you guys know the frame is done. So I got my first coat of Eastwood Rust Encapsulated Plus on here. I typically use the platinum, but platinum is platinum. This is black, and I don't feel like top coating this or anything, so I stuck with this because it's black. But dude, you can see this stuff goes on super thick and it dries hard. Still a little tacky. I'm getting ready to flip this over and do the bottom side. This stuff is awesome. I love it. Like I said, platinum is my favorite. This is second best. This is a nice, hard, durable coating. And seeing as how this was basically just frame paint and it lasted since '88, this is gonna be good. This car's not gonna see anything but maybe getting stuck in a rainstorm from here every now and then. But flip that over, get another heavy coat on it, and that'll be ready to go in the car once we get the bushings. Now, super stoked. Look at my sick, sweet hairdo here. I just got shipping notification. My axles are coming all the way from Bulgaria. Kangaroo Racing Pro FD drift team over there. There's a lot of drift stuff going in this car if you haven't noticed. I got a lot of stuff from Rad Dan, who's a FD driver, 2J builder down in Florida. The diff cage came from Blood Motorsport USA, that's also built several pro drift cars. And now my whole rear axle setup is coming from a Bulgarian drift team. So thanks, drift community. The shipping notification just came in on that. May have it by Wednesday in like 3 days, but I got the spindles apart here. I'm not going to show you, like you guys know, it's basic press stuff, hydraulic press, get your bearings out, be careful with safety glasses, all that garbage. But what you may not know how to do is this right here is a lower spearfill joint, flex joint, kind of like a ball joint. Basically the lower control arm rides on this and goes up and down, springs over here, and it goes up and down in the car. Well, these things are definitely original, and they're haggard, they've had it. And what tends to happen is people will replace, you know, control arm bushings and bearings and do all that kind of stuff, but these never seem to get replaced, usually because people get in here and realize that they don't have the right tool for the job. This is the right tool for the job. I got this one off eBay. Mercedes used to have an official part number, but those are like unobtainium if you can find a real Mercedes tool. This is basically a clone or a copy of it, and it's a specific tool literally just to do this specific job on a W124 chassis. And if you're new to Mercedes or BMW, then get used to it. If you're not, then you know the pain of special tools. So the way to do this, first thing you want to do is get a pick in here and clean out the outside of the race. And what that's going to allow you to do is set this tool in here, and it's a very tight tolerance tool, and make sure you're actually on the suspension component, not the spindle. If you try to do this with a press, what you're going to end up doing is either breaking this off, or you're going to end up hogging this hole out because you can't get a straight line down into that bearing. So real simple how this works. Once you have that clean and lined up, it kind of finds its natural home in there. And you're going to take the other side of the tool with the big cup, put it on the outside of the spindle, feed the threaded rod through till you can see it. And you want to keep your hand on this to make sure that these cups don't move, because what can happen is the cups get out of alignment, and then you're actually trying to squeeze the spindle itself, and not the actual spherical joint or whatever the heck you want to call it that you're trying to press out. Now I feed it till I can touch the rod, touch the rod on the outside of the joint here. Make sure that everything's lined up. And if you have this tool, this is like a 2-minute job. If you don't have this tool, this is a nightmare. I'm gonna go ahead and show you real time getting this bad boy out. Two 22 millimeter wrenches here. What I'm gonna do is use the table as my other arm, and we're just gonna start tightening this bad boy until this bearing breaks free. But once you get the rust surface to break, it starts to get tough. There, you hear that noise? That means the rust is broke free. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses when you do this kind of stuff, as I didn't have mine on. But there you have it. You can see this thing is just, it doesn't even really spin. It's like bone on bone, you know what I mean? And let's see what it looks like in here. And it's pretty simple how this tool works. It's the exact size of the bushing itself, and then you just got a large outer cup. Super awesome tool. It's, you know, it's like 120 bucks on eBay, I think. I'm gonna keep the bearing clips. By the way, pro tip, the best thing to put a new bearing in is the old bearing. It's the right size, you know what I'm saying? So keep your old bearings until you get the new ones in, especially if you don't have a lot of tools. Those bad boys are ready to go. And if you look over here, we got rid of all the parking brake stuff, the parking brake pads, got rid of all that stuff. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna put brake dust shields on, but all this stuff, the only thing we're keeping of the rear suspension is the lowering springs, the lower control arms, the discs, and the stud. And right now I've got the new bearings and everything freezing. And you can see how much nicer that is compared to that. But I've got the wheel bearings in there, let them freeze for about 4 hours or so. I'm gonna take the discs to get cleaned up at O'Reilly's, and I've also got the hard bushings that I'm replacing these rubber bushings with in the freezer. Just makes everything go back together easier. Those got to get cleaned up, but none of that's going back on the car. We have all new control arms coming. We've got new hubs coming, so the old hubs aren't even going back. I might have to take those little pins out of the hub for the new ones. I'll wait to see till they get here. But things are happening rapidly. Hardest stuff is done with this. Putting these new stuff back in these goes way smoother than old out. So next I'm gonna go ahead and flip this frame, get this thing painted, let it dry for a couple of days, hang it in the car. All right, I got the new bearings in, and I'll tell you, reinstalling these lower swivel joints, these lower rear control arm joints, I don't know how you would do this without this tool. Even with this tool, it was kind of a pain, and that's just because the real Mercedes tool is obviously tighter tolerance than this. This one doesn't fit in here very well, so I had to use one of my press bearing adapters to get it started so it was straight in the bore. Yeah. Anyways, you can see that it's in there. I also, to protect the boot, the Mercedes one fits around the boots perfectly. This one doesn't. So I took the boot off just so I didn't ruin it. And you can see it's basically a ball joint, you know, except it's got an end on both sides, vehicle joint, whatever you want to call it, but it's pressed in there. I probably could have went just a hair further in it, but I'm gonna call that good. And I'm gonna reinstall my boot. And this is the passenger side spindle is ready to go. New rear bearing. This is a Schaeffler bearing. I think they changed their names now actually, but good bearing. I either use them or Timken usually. And this is an actual swage bearing that is factory Mercedes part. So the first one lasted 250,000 miles. I don't think I'll be changing that again. We'll call it good. Now, frame's drying pretty well, and I just got notification that my axles are gonna be here in 2 days. So very exciting. Well, we're cooking with grease today. So the hardest part of the day is getting these bushings out of the lower control arms, and replace them with Darlin or whatever that stuff is called, the hard plastic stuff. It's almost like aluminum, but basically there's no rubber in the rear suspension at all anymore. And then I decided I couldn't put all these parts back in the car rusty because I already got it all apart. When am I gonna have that opportunity again, you know? So put the rust encapsulator on the control arms. I also coated the spindles. Spindles are rebuilt. We got new lower control arm joint, new bearings. The only thing left to do with these is press the new hubs in that are coming with the axles. And I think we're honestly at a stopping point here. I need the axles and hubs to show up to press those into these. I gotta let these dry so I can flip them over and paint the other side. Same with the control arms. Frame is almost dry, so solid day. The rear suspension is basically rebuilt. Anything else going on here is gonna be brand new parts. And you can see how much stuff we're not using. Everything on the floor not using. We're using the disc, the HR lowering springs. I was able to get all those studs out without ruining them, so bonus there. But you can see not much of the rear suspension original Mercedes stuff's going back on. The only original Mercedes stuff going back on, modified frame and Mercedes disc brake, because those are aftermarket springs. We're using all aftermarket control arms, and even the frame, I guess you could say, isn't really stock Mercedes anymore. These lower control arms are stock. We just put hard bushings in them, so there's that. It's time for me to have a nice cold beverage, fix my hair. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. This was part 3 Sick Smokies prep. Next episode, part 4, all this is going back in the car. It's gonna be like adult Legos. Everything's already been pre-fit. It's gonna all go together, put some fuel lines on, and it's a driving car again. So I'm excited about next episode. You should be too. We'll see you next time here on Timeless Steel Garage. Thank you.